Assalamu alaikum. I am Dr. Khadija, Associate Professor, Department of Physiology, Bosundhadin Medical College. Welcome you all to this online class. Today I am going to discuss the second part of endocrine pancreas. The students look at the table. It shows the factors that increase or decrease the insulin secretion. So, first, increase insulin secretion is by increased blood glucose level, increase blood-free fatty acids, increase blood amino acids, and some gastrointestinal hormones like gastrin, cholecystokinin, secretin, gastric inhibitory peptides, and other hormones like glucagon, growth hormone, cortisol, and parasympathetic stimulation, acetylcholine, beta-adrenergic stimulation, and insulin resistance like obesity, and sulfonylurea drugs. These are the stimulator for insulin secretions. And the factors that decrease insulin secretion are decreased blood glucose level, fasting condition, somatostatin, and beta-adrenergic activity, and leptin. This is the flow chart showing the consequence of insulin deficiency. Insulin deficiency and glucagon excess causes decreased blood glucose uptake, and that causes hyperglycemia and glycosuria, osmotic diuresis, electrolyte depletion. And on the other hand, insulin deficiency increases protein catabolism, and that increases plasma amino acid and nitrogen loss in the urine. And on the other hand, insulin deficiency increases lipolysis, and that increases plasma free fatty acid, ketogenesis, ketonemia, ketonuria, and lastly, all this together causes dehydration and acidosis, and lead to coma and death. Consequence of insulin deficiency leads to a clinical condition, that is diabetes mellitus, that means passing of sweet urine. Greek and Roman physicians used the term diabetes to refer to a condition in which the cardinal findings was a large volume of urine. Now, what is diabetes mellitus? Diabetes mellitus is a syndrome of impaired carbohydrate, protein, and fat metabolism caused by either lack of insulin secretion or decreased sensitivity of tissues to insulin. There are two general types of diabetes mellitus, that is type 1 diabetes mellitus and type 2 diabetes mellitus. In type 1 diabetes mellitus, also called insulin dependent diabetes mellitus, it is caused by lack of insulin secretion. Type 2 diabetes mellitus, also called non-insulin dependent diabetes mellitus. It is initially used by decreased sensitivity of target tissues to the metabolic effect of insulin. This reduces sensitivity to insulin is often called insulin resistance. This figure shows how type 1 diabetes mellitus occurs. Here you can see pancreas is secreting low amount of insulin in the circulation. So, there is low insulin in the circulation, so muscle cannot utilize glucose for energy because of low insulin. On the other hand, muscle utilize glycogen and protein for energy, and that causes breakdown of it protein, and all this causes ketoacidosis. This figure also shows that this is the type 1. In case of type 1 diabetes mellitus, there is less amount of beta cell because of the beta cell are destroyed here, so less amount of insulin are produced. And in this flow chart shows how type 2 diabetes mellitus occurs. Here, insulin resistance occurs due to genetic or environmental factors. Obesity also play important role for development of insulin resistance, and all these together impair blood glucose impairment and beta cell failure, and all this together causes type 2 diabetes. This is a flow chart showing the difference between the type 1 and type 2 diabetes. First, age of onset. In case of type 1 diabetes, it is usually less than 20 years. In type 2 diabetes, it is usually more than 30 years. And body mass usually low in case of type 1, low or normal, but in case of type 2, they are usually obese. Plasma insulin level is low in or absent in type 1, but normal or high, initially high in type 2 diabetes. Plasma glucagon usually high can be suppressed in type 1, but in type 2 it is high and resistant to suppression. And plasma glucose level increased in both cases, and insulin sensitivity is normal in type 1 but reduced in type 2. And in case of therapy, we use insulin in type 1, but in type 2 weight loss and anti-diabetic drugs like metformin. Now the signs symptoms of diabetes mellitus, that is polyuria, polydipsia and polyphagia, fatigue, blurring of vision and weight loss. And the major chronic complications are usually blindness, cardiovascular disease, shock, kidney diseases or nerve damage, and loss of circulation in the peripheral organs like limbs and legs that may lead to gangrene and amputation and heart attack and stroke. Investigation should be done for diagnosis of diabetes mellitus. First is the fasting blood glucose level. That is, a normal blood glucose level is usually 4.5 to 5.6 millimole per liter or 70 to 110 milligram per dl. Or from guideline you can see it is 80 to 90 milligram per dl. And suspicious for diabetes is in case if the blood glucose level is more than 5.6 millimole per liter. And diabetic patient have the blood glucose level is usually more than 6.7 millimole per liter. And random blood glucose level is more than 10 millimole per liter. And oral glucose tolerance test, that is OGTT, normal is less than 7.8 millimole per liter, and in diabetic patient is usually more than 10 mole per liter. Now the treatment is usually lifestyle modification and oral hypoglycemic drug and insulin therapy. Now what is insulinemia or hyperinsulinism? Insulinoma is usually caused by adenoma of islets of Langerhans. Its clinical features are usually neuropsychiatric symptoms, nervousness, confusion, stupor and hypoglycemic attack. About 10 to 15% of the adenomas are malignant and occasionally metastasis from the islets of Langerhans and spread throughout the body, producing tremendous amount of insulin. And to prevent hypoglycemia in this patient, administration of about 1000 gram of glucose should be administered to the patient. And this is the scale showing the conditions appear in hypoglycemia, different levels of hypoglycemia. You can see if the blood glucose level is 4.6 millimole per liter, that inhibit insulin secretion, and in case in 3.8 millimole per liter, hormones like glucagon, epinephrine and growth hormone secretion occurs, and in 3.2 millimole per liter, the cortisol level secretion cortisol secretion occurs, and when in the blood glucose level is 2.2 millimole, it is lethal, and usually coma and conversion occurs subsequently, and death occurs in case of 0.6 millimole per liter. Now another hormone, important hormone, that is glucagon. Glucagon is secreted by the alpha cells of the islets of Langerhans when the blood glucose concentration falls. Glucagon antagonizes the action of insulin, so it is called hyperglycemic hormone. Like insulin, glucagon is a large polypeptide. It has a molecular weight of about 3485, composed of a chain of 29 amino acids. Glucagon is synthesized as much as large procoagulant precursor, that is pre-glucagon, proglucagon and then glucagon. Glucagon circulates in the plasma in free form. Its half-life is about 5 to 10 minutes. Glucagon is quickly metabolized in the liver. Effects of glucose metabolism. The major effect of glucagon on glucose metabolism are breakdown of liver glucagon and increased gluconeogenesis in the liver. The other effects of glucagon are Glucagon activates adipose cell lipase that increases the fatty acid concentration in the blood and ketosis. It also inhibits storage of triglycerides in the liver and increases fatty acid concentration in the blood and ketosis. Glucagon in high concentration also enhances the strength of the heart. It increases the blood flow in some tissues, especially the kidneys. It enhances bile secretions and also inhibits gastric acid secretion. All these effects are probably of minimal importance in normal functioning of the body. Now you can see a table. It shows the comparison between insulin action and glucagon action. You can see its action in muscle, liver, and adipose tissue. In muscle tissue, glycogen synthesis, amino acid is increased. Glycogen synthesis, amino acid uptake, and glucose uptake all increases by insulin, but there is no response by glucagon. But potassium transport to the cell is increased by the insulin, but decreased by glucagon. In liver, glycogenolysis is prevents by the insulin, but increases by glucagon. On the other hand, gluconeogenesis decreases by the insulin and increases by glucagon. And protein synthesis increase by insulin but decrease by glucagon. And in adipose tissue, you can see fatty acid synthesis increases by insulin and decreases by glucagon. And lipolysis decreases by insulin but increases by glucagon. And triglyceride storage increases by in insulin action but decreases by glucagon. So you can see there is a table. There is opposite action of insulin and glucagon. Glucagon receptors. The liver is one of the major target organ of glucagon. Glucagon binds to the hepatic receptors in the cell membrane and stimulates adenyl cyclase and thus increase the intracellular concentration of cyclic AMP. Another table shows the factors affecting glucagon secretion. Stimulators for glucagon secretion are amino acids, cholecystokinin, gastrin, cortisol, exercise, infection, other stresses, beta-adrenergic stimulus, theophylline, acetylcholine. And inhibitors are glucose, somatostatin, secretin, free fatty acid, ketones, insulin, phenotine, alpha-adrenergic stimulus, and GABA. Now, another hormone, somatostatin. Somatostatin, it inhibits glucagon and insulin secretion. The beta cells of the islets of Langerhans secrete the hormone somatostatin. It is about 14 amino acid polypeptide. It has an extremely short half-life of only 3 minutes in the circulating blood. Somatostatin has multiple inhibitory effects as follows. It depresses the secretion of both insulin and glucagon. It also decreases the motility of stomach, duodenum, and gallbladder. It also decreases both secretion and absorption of gastrointestinal tract. Somatostatin is the same chemical substance as growth hormone inhibitory hormone, which is secreted by the hypothalamus and suppresses the anterior pituitary growth hormone secretion. Now, we are going to discuss the summary of blood glucose regulation in our blood. In normal person, the blood glucose concentration is narrowly controlled, usually about between the 80 to 90 milligram per 100 ml of blood in the fasting person each morning before breakfast. This concentration increases up to 120 to 140 milligram per 100 ml during the first hour and so after a meal. But the feedback systems for control of blood glucose return the blood glucose concentration rapidly back to the control level, usually within 2 hours after last absorption of carbohydrates. Conversely, in starvation, the glyconeogenesis function of the liver provides the glucose that is required for the maintenance of fasting blood glucose level. First of the we are going to discuss liver. the liver functions as an important blood glucose buffer system. That is, when the blood glucose rises to high concentration after a meal, and the rate of insulin secretion also increases. As much as two-thirds of the glucose absorbed from the gut is almost immediately stored in the liver in the form of glycogen. Then during the succeeding hours, when the blood glucose concentration and the rate of insulin secretion falls, the liver releases the glucose back to the blood. In this way, liver decreases the fluctuations in the blood glucose concentration. In fact, the person with severe liver disease is become almost impossible to maintain a narrow range of blood glucose concentration. Now, we are discussing insulin glucagon function for regulation of blood glucose. Both insulin and glucose functions as important feedback control system for maintaining a normal blood glucose concentration. When the blood glucose concentration rises too high, increase insulin secretion and causes blood glucose concentration to decrease towards the normal. Conversely, a decrease in blood glucose stimulates glucagon secretion, and this glucagon then functions the opposite direction to increase the blood glucose towards the normal. Also, in severe hypoglycemic condition, a direct effect of low blood glucose on the hypothalamus stimulates the sympathetic nervous system to secrete epinephrine, and this epinephrine secretion secreted by the adrenal glands, and further this causes a release of glucose from the liver. This also helps in protect against severe hypoglycemia. And number 4, and finally, over a period of hours and days, both growth hormone and cortisol are secreted in response to prolonged hypoglycemia. They both decrease the rate of glucose utilization by most cells of the body and help return blood glucose concentration towards the normal. So that's all of my lecture today. Students, I hope you have enjoyed my class, and thank you for your patience hearing.